country is in no mood to suffer unemployment, inadequate basic amenities, lack of infrastructure, and apathetic governance. The slowdown in India broadly reflects the trend in many economies. In contrast to the aftermath of the crisis of 2008-2009, when restoration of growth in advanced economies was a primary concern, the continuing slowdown being presently witnessed in many emerging economies has posed a threat to sustained global recovery. Fortunately, there are green shoots of recovery being seen in the global economy. As per the IMF, the world economy is projected to grow at 3.6% in 2014, vis-a-vis 3% in 2013, with the euro area expected to register a positive growth after a contraction witnessed in 2012 and 13. However, the performance of the US economy with the attendant implications for an unconventional monetary policy stance and global financial conditions is pivotal to the fate of the global recovery in the coming years. These are the headwinds against which the Indian economy would have to maneuver its way to attain a higher growth trajectory. As Finance Minister, I am bound to usher in a policy regime that will result in a desired macroeconomic outcome of higher growth, lower inflation, sustained level of external balance, and prudent policy stance. The budget is the most comprehensive action plan in this regard. In the first budget of the NDA government that I am presenting before the August House, my aim is to lay down a broad policy indicator of the direction in which we wish to take the economy. The steps I will announce in this budget are only the beginning of a journey towards a sustained growth of 7 to 8% or above within the next 3-4 years, with the macroeconomic stabilization, which includes lower levels of inflation, less fiscal deficit, and manageable current account deficit. Therefore, it would not be wise to expect anything that can be done or must be done in the first budget presented within 45 days of the formation of the government. While higher growth is a sine qua non, we cannot be oblivious of the fact that there is a large population of this country which is below the poverty line. It is the poor who suffer the most. We have to ensure that our anti-poverty programs are well targeted. The growing aspiration of the people will be reflected in the development strategy followed by the government, led by the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, and the mandate of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Allow me to assure this Honourable House that we have taken up this challenge in the right earnest. We shall leave no stone unturned in creating a vibrant and strong India. The prevailing economic situation presents a great challenge. It calls for a conscious choice to be made by all of us. Should we allow this drift to carry on and watch helplessly? Should we allow our future to suffer because of our indecisiveness? Should we be victims of mere populism or wasteful expenditure? To me, the response and the remedy are both clear. The task before me today is very challenging because we need to revive growth, particularly in the manufacturing sector and infrastructure, to raise adequate resources for our developmental needs. On the one hand, the task is simple if we accept the principle that we cannot spend beyond our means. We need to introduce fiscal prudence that will lead to fiscal consolidation and discipline. Fiscal prudence to me is of paramount importance because of considerations of intergenerational equity. We cannot leave behind a legacy of debt for our future generations. We cannot go on spending today, which would be financed by taxation on a future date. There is an urgent need to generate more resources to fuel the economy. For this, the tax GDP ratio must be improved and the non-tax revenues increased. We must remember that the decline of fiscal deficit from 5.7% of the GDP in 2011-12 to 4.8% in 2012-13 and 4.5% in 2013-14 was mainly achieved by a reduction in expenditure rather than by way of realization of higher revenues. Although the external sector witnessed a turnaround with the year ending with a current account deficit of 1.7% of the GDP against 4.7% in 2012-13, this was mainly achieved through restriction of non-essential imports and slowdown in the overall aggregate demand. Going forward, we must continue to be watchful of the CAD. My predecessor had set up a very difficult task of reducing the fiscal deficit to 4.1% of the GDP in the current year. Considering that we have 2 years of low GDP growth and almost static industrial growth, a moderate increase in indirect taxes, a large subsidy burden, and not so encouraging tax buoyancy, the target of 4.1% fiscal deficit is indeed daunting. Difficult as it may appear, I have decided to accept this target as a challenge. One fails only when one stops trying. My roadmap for fiscal consolidation is a fiscal deficit of 3.6% for 2015-16 and 3% for 2016-17. I am conscious of the fact that the Iraq crisis is leaving behind an impact on oil prices and the situation in the Middle East continues to be volatile. Monsoon this year appears to be more unpredictable, while inflation has remained at elevated levels relative to what it is perceived as acceptable. There is a gradual moderation in the WPI recently, from a high of 7.35% in 2012-13 to 5.98 in 2013-14. But we are still not out of the woods. We must address fully the problem of black money, which is a curse on our economy. Faced with these adversities, we have no option but to undertake some bold steps in order to enhance economic activity, to spur growth in the economy. These steps are only the beginning of our effort to revive the growth spirit of the Indian economy. They are directional. Expenditure Management Commission. My government is committed to the principle of minimum government, maximum governance. To achieve this goal, time has come to revive the allocative and operational efficiencies of government expenditure to achieve the maximum output. The government will constitute an Expenditure Management Commission which will look into various aspects of expenditure reform to be undertaken by the government. The Commission will give its interim report within this financial year. I also propose to overhaul the subsidy regime, including food and petroleum subsidies, and make it more targeted and provide full protection to the marginalized, poor, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. A new urea policy would be formulated. The debate on whether to introduce the goods and services tax must now come to an end. We have discussed the issue for the past many years. Some states have been apprehensive about surrendering their taxation jurisdiction. Others want to be adequately compensated. I have discussed the matter with the states both individually and collectively. I do hope we are able to bring a final solution in this course of this year and approve the legislative scheme which enables the introduction of the GST. This will streamline tax administration, avoid harassment of business, and result in higher tax collection both for the centre and the states. I assure all states that government will be more than fair in dealing with them. Tax administration. The sovereign right of the government to undertake retrospective legislation is unquestionable. However, this power has to be exercised with extreme caution and judiciousness, keeping in mind the impact of each such measure on the economy and the overall investment climate. This government will not ordinarily bring any change retrospectively which creates a fresh liability. Honourable members are aware that consequent upon the retrospective amendment of Income Tax Act 1961 undertaken by the Finance Bill of 2012, a few cases have come up in various courts and other legal fora. These cases are at different stage of pendency and will naturally reach their logical conclusion. At this junction, I would like to convey to this august House and also to the investor community at large that we are committed to providing a stable and predictable taxation regime which would be investor-friendly and spur growth. Keeping this in mind, we have decided that henceforth all cases arising out of the retrospective amendments of 2012 in respect of indirect transfers and coming to the notice of assessing officers will be scrutinized by a high-level committee to be constituted by the CBDT before any action is initiated in such cases. I hope the investor community, both within India and abroad, will repose confidence on our stated position and participate in India's growth story with renewed vigor. Tax demand of more than 4 lakh crores is under dispute and litigation before various courts and appellate authorities. This is one of the serious concerns of all taxpayers in the country. In order to reduce litigation in direct taxes, I propose to make certain legislative and administrative changes. Currently, an advance ruling can be obtained about tax liability of a non-resident from Authority for Advance Rulings. The facility is not available to resident taxpayers except public sector undertakings. I propose to enable the resident taxpayers to obtain an advance ruling in respect of their income tax liability with a defined threshold. I also propose to strengthen the Authority for Advance Rulings by constituting additional benches. I further propose to enlarge the scope of Income Tax Settlement Commission so that taxpayers may approach the Commission for settlement of disputes. This would continue to be once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for any taxpayer. As an administrative measure, I propose to set up a high-level committee to interact with trade and industry on a regular basis and ascertain areas where clarity in tax laws is required. Based on recommendations of this committee, the Central Board of Direct Taxes and the Central Board of Excise and Customs shall issue appropriate clarifications wherever considered necessary on tax issues within a period of 2 months. Transfer pricing is a major area of litigation for both residents and non-residents. I have proposed certain changes in the transfer pricing regulations, which I would spell out in Part B of my speech. I hope these measures would go a long way in improving the confidence of taxpayers in the tax system and provide certainty and clarity in tax laws. Foreign direct investment. The policy of the NDA government is to promote foreign direct investments selectively in sectors where it helps the larger interest of the Indian economy. FDI in several sectors is an additionality of resource which helps in promoting domestic manufacturing and job creation. India today needs a boost for job creation. On manufacturing sector in particular needs a push for job creation. India today is the largest buyer of defense equipment in the world. Our domestic manufacturing capabilities are still at a nascent stage. We are buying substantial part of our defense requirements directly from foreign players, companies controlled by foreign governments, and foreign private parties are supplying our defense requirement to us at a considerable outflow of foreign exchange. Currently, we permit 26% FDI in defense manufacturing. The composite cap of foreign exchange is being raised to 49% with full management control, Indian management and control through the FIPB route. The insurance sector is investment starved. Several segments of the insurance sector need an expansion. The composite cap of the insurance sector is proposed to be increased up to 49% from the current level of 26% with full management and control through the FIPB route. To encourage development of smart cities, which will also provide habitation for this new middle class, requirement of the built-up area of capital conditions for FDI is being reduced from 50,000 square meters to 20,000 square meters and from $10 million to $5 respectively with a 3-year post-completion lock-in. To further encourage these projects, which commit at least 30% of the total project costs for low-cost affordable housing, will be exempted for the minimum built-up area and capitalization requirements with conditions of 3-year lock-in. FDI in the manufacturing sector today is on an automatic route. The manufacturing units will be allowed to sell its products through retail, including e-commerce platforms, without any additional approval. Back capitalization. Financial stability is the foundation of our rapid recovery. Our banking system needs to be further strengthened. To be in line with the Basel III norms, there is a requirement to infuse 2,40,000 crores rupees as equity by 2018 in our banks. To meet this huge capital requirement, we need to raise additional resources to fill this obligation. While preserving the public ownership, the capital of these banks will be raised by increasing the shareholding of the capital in a phased manner through sale of shares largely through retail common citizens in the country. Thus, while government will continue to hold majority shareholding, the citizens of India will also get direct shareholding in these banks, which currently they hold indirectly. We will also examine the proposal to give greater autonomy to banks while making them accountable. PSU capital expenditure. To give a thrust to investment in the economy, PSUs will also play their part constructively. I am assured that PSUs will invest through capital investment a total amount of rupees 2,47,941 crores in the current financial years to create a virtuous investment cycle. Smart cities. As the fruits of development reach an increasingly large number of people, the pace of migration from rural areas to the cities is increasing. A new middle class is emerging which has aspirations of better living standards. Unless new cities are developed to accommodate the burgeoning number of people through existing cities would become unlivable. The Prime Minister has a vision of developing 100 smart cities as satellite towns of larger cities by modernizing the existing mid-sized cities. To provide the necessary focus to this critical activity, I have provided a sum of rupees 7,060 crores in the current fiscal. E-visas. Tourism is one of the larger job creators globally. Many economies world over are supported by tourism. In order to give a major boost to tourism, the facility of electronic travel authorization, e-visas, would be introduced in a phased manner at 9 airports in India, where necessary infrastructure would be put in place within the next 6 months. The countries in which electronic travel authorization facility to which it will be extended would be identified in a phased manner. This would further the facility of visa on arrival. REITs and InvestITs. Real estate investment trusts have been successfully used as instruments for pooling investment in several countries. I intend to provide necessary incentives for REITs, which will have a pass-through for the purposes of taxation. As an innovation, a modified REITs type structure for infrastructure projects is also being announced as Infrastructure Investment Trust, which would have a similar pass-through status for PPP and other infrastructure projects. These structures would reduce the pressure on the banking system while making available fresh equity. I am confident these instruments would attract long-term finance from foreign and domestic sources, including the NRIs. Kisan Vikas Patras was a very popular instrument among small saving. I plan to introduce the instrument to encourage people who have banked and unbanked savings to invest in these instruments. Skill India. A national multi-skill program called Skill India is proposed to be launched. It would skill the youth for an emphasis of employability and entrepreneurial skills. It will also provide training and support for traditional professions like welders, carpenters, cobblers, masons, blacksmiths, weavers. Convergence of various schemes to attain this objective is also proposed. The Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Bulk of our farmlands are rain-fed and dependent on monsoons. Therefore, there is a need to provide assured irrigation to mitigate risk. To improve access to irrigation, we propose to initiate a scheme, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. I propose to set aside 1,000 crores for this purpose. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. The need for sanitation is of utmost importance. Although the central government is providing resources within its means, the task of total sanitation cannot be achieved without the support of all. The government intends to cover every household by total sanitation by the year 2019, the 150th year of the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, through the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Gujarat has demonstrated successfully the urban development model of urbanization of rural areas, through which people living in rural areas can effectively get civic infrastructure associated services. Shama Prasad Mukherjee Urban Mission will be launched to deliver the integrated project-based infrastructure in rural areas, which will also include the development of economic activities till development. The preferred mode of delivery would be the PPPs, while using various schemes, funds for financing. Power is a vital input for economic growth, and the government is committed to providing 24/7 uninterrupted power supply to all homes. The Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana for feeder separation will be launched to augment power supply to the rural areas and strengthening the sub-transmission and distribution systems. I propose to set aside 500 crores for this purpose. The government of Gujarat has embarked upon a mission to build the largest statue of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Sardar Patel stands as a symbol of unity of this country. To support the Gujarat government in this initiative to erect the Statue of Unity, I propose to set aside rupees 200 crores. Madam, I now turn to the budgetary allocations. While announcing the allocations, I want to reiterate my government's firm commitment to strengthen the federal structure of the country, our resolve to work closely with the state governments for the larger good of the people. Government is committed to the welfare of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. This year, an amount of rupees 50,548 crores is proposed under the scheduled caste plan and rupees 32,387 crore under the TSP. To provide credit enhancement facility for young startup entrepreneurs from scheduled caste who aspire to be a part of the new middle class, I propose to separately set aside rupees 200 crores, which will be operationalized through a scheme of the IFCI. For the welfare of tribals, the Van Bandhu Kalyan Yojana is being launched with an initial allocation of rupees 100 crores. Welfare of senior, please wait. Welfare of senior citizens. The NDA government, during the last term in office, had introduced the Varisht Pension Bima Yojana as a pension scheme for senior citizens. Under the scheme, a total number of 3.1 lakh annuitants were being benefited from the corpus amount of rupees 6,095 crores. I propose to revive the scheme for a limited period from 15th August 2014 to 14th August 2015 for the benefit of all citizens aged 60 years or above. A large amount of money is estimated to be lying in the unclaimed accounts of the PPF, post office, saving schemes, etc. Those are mostly out of investments belonging to the senior citizens and on their demise remain unclaimed for want of relevant payment instructions. I propose to set up a committee to examine and recommend how this amount can be used to protect the further financial interests of the senior citizens. The committee will give its report not later than December this year. Government is fully committed to the social security and the welfare employees serving in the organized sector. The government is notifying minimum pension of rupees 1,000 per month to all subscriber members of the EP scheme and has made an initial contribution of rupees 250 crores in the current financial years to meet the expenditure. Further increase in the mandatory wage ceiling of subscription of the EPS from 6,500 to 15,000 has been made. A provision of rupees 250 crores has been provided in the current budget. For the convenience of subscribers, EPFO will launch a unified account scheme service for contributing members and facility portability of the Provident Fund accounts. Empowerment of the differently abled persons. Government will make an all-out effort to create a more inclusive society for persons with disabilities to enable them to enjoy equal opportunities and to lead an empowered life with dignity. I propose to extend the assistance to the disabled persons for purchase, fittings, aids and appliances to include contemporary aids and assistive devices. It will also propose to establish a national-level institute for universal inclusive design and mental health rehabilitation, and also a center for disability sports. Incentives for visually challenged. The Braille press says in the government and the private sectors are not able to meet the demand of the textbooks for the visually impaired students. It is proposed to provide assistance of the state governments to establish 15 new press and modernize the 10 existing presses in the current financial year. The government will also print currency notes with Braille-like signs to assist the visibly challenged persons. Women's safety is a concern shared by all honourable members of the House. We need to test our different approaches that can be validated and scaled up quickly. An outlay of rupees 50 crores will be spent by the Ministry of Road Transport on a pilot scheme on the safety of women in public road transport. A sum of rupees 150 crore will be spent by the Ministry of Home on a scheme to increase the safety of women in larger cities. It is also proposed to provide a crisis management center in all districts of the NCT Delhi this year. In all government and private hospitals, the funding will be provided from the Nirbhaya Fund. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Yojana. It is a shame that while the country has emerged as a major player amongst the emerging economies, the apathy towards the girl child is still quite rampant in these many parts of the country. Therefore, I propose to launch the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Yojana, which will be focused scheme which will help in generating awareness and also improve the efficiency of the delivery welfare services meant for women. I propose to set aside a sum of rupees 100 crores for this. Gender mainstreaming. The government would focus on campaigns to sensitize people in this country towards the concerns of the girl child and women. The process of sensitization must begin early. Therefore, school curriculum will have a separate chapter on gender mainstreaming. The Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana, initiated it during NDA-1 under the stewardship of Prime Minister Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, has had a massive impact in improvement of access to rural population. It is time to reaffirm our commitment to a better and more energetic PMGSY under the dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. I propose to provide a sum of rupees 14,389 crores for this purpose.